People for Hodier Black family, once again, welcome back to the School of Urban Philosophy, where we always straight up, straightforward, and to the point, where information is used to revolutionize the Black man and the Black woman to push us forward on this path to African sovereignty. We welcome you once again to another episode of the Black Forum. So let's get it in, Black man and Black woman. How y'all doing, family? How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Great. That's all you doing. That's all you doing is great.
I'm doing great. I'm feeling great. I'm walking great. I'm thinking great, and I'm striving to create greatness. So that's where I'm at.
Yes. Yeah. You see the infamous African said, "Bibi Hodier race first," and we want to send him a big beautiful one back. Bibi Hodier race first, my brother.
Race first. Bibi Hodier race first.
Glad you are with us.
That's right. Race first.
Race first all day and all night.
Yeah. Race first. So tonight, what we want to talk about, I think, man, I think it's prominent, man. First and foremost, I would like to give and extend a perfect honor to the great Baba Kamal Kamban, who have made his transition last week. And what I would like to say about Baba Kamban is that I like to say that he was your consummate Black man, right? He stood on Black. And one of the things that he always would share is that, Black liberation is always going to win, man. Stay on Black, stay on Black, stay on Black, stay on Black. So how does Black, how do the things that we do impact us as Black people, right? That got to be the paradigm. That got to be what we use, so that has to be the measuring stick. And that's one of the things and one of the mighty, mighty lessons that, Baba Kamban, transmitted to us and left us with. Is that there. So I wanted to get into that just to say that, but I want us to move forward. But I want to ask all of you a question. And I think the question that I want to ask you guys is this here. Because I've been thinking about a number of things. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is how do people pertaining to us, Black people, how do we move forward without possessing an idea of where we must go? Is it possible to move forward without an idea as to where we must go?
Hotep. From where I'm sitting and how I understand it, in order for us to move forward, I think we got to have some sense of idea where we're going. Because by knowing, it gives us a sense of orientation in the direction which we need to move, and also the tools that we need in the process in order to get there. I don't think that we can reach a particular point where we need to be at if we don't have no knowledge of where we are going at. So I don't think so from my position. Hotep.
Who else want to add to that?
I'll jump in because my comrade Shegu, who stated it perfectly, especially with regard to knowing what you'll need on that journey, right? So instead of moving around aimlessly, moving around without any sense of direction, you're able to properly plan for that journey, right? So if we're ever to make it to a particular destination, we can't make it to that destination without knowing what turns we should take, without knowing what turns we should avoid, without knowing how long it will take, without knowing who we should be in contact with and in connection with, without reaching out to the people who have forged that path before us so that we know exactly how we should be moving. And so if we're going to take any type of stance, if we're going to take any type of forward movement, it would be unwise to move without knowing, without having a sense of destination on what we're looking to achieve.
Cool. So Dr. Bobby E. White, in his perfect little pamphlet, The Psychopathic Racial Personality, he introduces an African proverb. And in that particular book, the proverb that he introduces says that if you do not know where you're going, any road will get you there. If you do not know where you're going, any road will get you there. That's similar to what you're saying, because essentially, if I don't know how to get from West Baltimore to East Baltimore, if I don't have that clarity, anything or anywhere I go, I could assume that I'm at this particular destination because I don't even know what that destination is. I don't know what it looked like. I don't even have a clue. So anywhere I go and wherever I end up at, I could, realistically assume I'm there when in reality I'm not there. And I asked that question. I want us to talk about that because to a great extent, that's what we're contending with. To a great extent, we're contending with that. Individuals who are moving, want to move, and always saying things like, let's move, let's do this, that, or the other, without having a clue as to where we're heading, right? What we're trying to achieve and how to get there. So is it fair to say, based on my first question, is it fair to say that there's a degree of knowledge and awareness that would have to precede us moving properly and correctly? It's a question to you guys.
Absolutely. Study. So you got to develop your consciousness of where we're trying to go. Like African sovereignty is something that we, as Black people should be striving to achieve. And we got to know how to get to sovereignty and what that means. What is the fundamental building blocks to building African sovereignty in terms of family and community that ultimately allow you to develop that sovereignty on that particular scale and level. So you got to have knowledge, basics that put you there so you can know what you're doing.
Okay. You introduce a great word that I think we can build on. You introduce African sovereignty. African sovereignty. What does that look like? Right? Theoretically, we talk about sovereignty. But how do we come from where we are at to sovereignty? Like, what are some things do you guys think, believe, or know that a person or a group of people should be engaged in preparation for African sovereignty? What are some of those things?
So one of the things that I would add, just coming off the backs of Kwanzaa, right? Being able to implement and actualize Kwanzaa 365 days a year. So what I mean is, we talk about umoja, practicing unity. We talk about collective work and responsibility, being able to work together. We talk about cooperative economics, being able to exchange Black dollars into Black hands, into Black communities. Practicing the 7 principles of Kwanzaa will set a strong foundation for being able to achieve African sovereignty. When we think about faith, when we think about the belief in our way in Jia too, all of these things, if we begin to just cycle them and say, let's embrace these 7 principles, we can get into the 10 declarations of Ma'at. We can get into, the 7 virtues of Ma'at. Being able to actualize those things, internalize those principles is a foundation setting, and it is a gatekeeper to and an introduction into our way. Those principles have been laid out for us, and they're pretty simple. It's easy. It's simple, and it's a part of who we are. So, and by embracing those, that will get us closer to African sovereignty. What y'all think?
Cool. I like that. So I want to keep picking at y'all for a minute on that, because I want us to really pull this piece apart, because people say African sovereignty a lot. We hear it. And one thing we can do as a people is that we can take our terms, we can take our phrases, we can take our concepts, and we can water them down by consistently speaking it and saying it and yelling it without any corresponding action behind it, or without understanding any type of framework how to bring these things into reality. So sovereignty. We're talking about now, when you talk about African sovereignty, you're talking about at the national level. It's at the national level, right? Because that's what you're talking about. But how do we get from, hypothetically speaking, let's say the hood, how do you get from the hood? How do you get from Baltimore City? How do you get from Tampa, Florida? How do we get from Flint, Michigan? How do we get from Chicago, Illinois, right? How do we get from Manhattan, New York? How do we get from Sacramento? How do we get from there to sovereignty? Like, what must we be doing outside of just doing quals? Like, what are the ingredients that builds a nation? That's more so I'm looking for. Like, what ingredients goes into that? That's the type of thinking that we got to get to, right? So what ingredient goes into getting us from these different places there to sovereignty? Because we're yelling it all day long, but the ingredients are not being utilized or implemented or even mixed together to begin to produce, you know what I'm saying, preliminary processes that's going to get us to sovereignty. So what ingredients that you think need to go up in there?
I think first we got to have an African sovereign mindset, meaning every single thing we do is about African sovereignty. So whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in sports, whether it's whatever you're doing, you have to have a mindset of sovereignty. That would be the first step. That's what we learn in urban philosophy.
And I'm gonna jump on the back of that and add the power of organization, right? Because when we say race first, we have to make sure that when we're saying race first, we're saying let's get organized. And so when we're saying African sovereignty, we're saying that those people who exist within that city have to get organized with each other. And when we're bringing in that component of urban socialization, we're saying that those people within that city have to be connecting with people in other cities who have been connecting with each other. And what happens is that those entities in the different cities who have now built up their people in their own regards, they're able to connect in a way that is more unified. And so in that organization, we have to, because Mama Gina, you laid down the foundation, which is the principles of Kwanzaa, right? And so in seeing that, we have to understand the unity, the self-determination, right? The collective work and responsibility. And we have to bring that into the fold so that we are all collectively working together in order to achieve that sovereignty. And each person is able to maximize their potential and their purpose. Because there's a comment up here where it's saying that we need land and constant study and growing our own food, economic power, government structure. We need all of those things. And in order for us to have all of those things, we have to be organized enough to find the gap, right? So if we have so many people who are doing the construction work, who are going to be our agriculturalists? Who are going to be our healers? Who are going to be our birth workers, right? So who are going to be all of the people that are able to fill in each of the needs within the society? And that can't happen without constant organization, because we have to talk to each other, right? We have to connect with each other and organize with each other so that we can lay that out.
Great point. So let me put you ready to jump in, Tommy, before I go somewhere? Because I'm going to push it a little bit.
I do, because a part of me, we were just landing today. So as we were flying on the airplane and, we're soaring over the clouds, I was kind of thinking and envisioning the same thing that you're talking about tonight. And one of the things that was just ringing loudly to me is having an ideology. And one of the things that when I look at a number of different movements, be it the labor movement, be it different nations that came into power or gained some semblance of independence, let's say, I don't know if I would necessarily say sovereignty, but independence, it was ideology. So at one point in time, it was the whole aspect of Marxism or communism. And that particular ideology is what galvanized many people in different regions of the world. And then it was a communism versus capitalism. It was a clash of ideologies. But fundamentally, what pushes let's just say, Narmer to move up the Nile to reinstitute or to reconsolidate the nation, or what inspires the Panthers to organize to do what they do, is ideology. So we got to be able to have a clear ideology that reflects us. And then as that ideology reflects us, then we can begin to galvanize our people around that. And that ideology is going to outline, you know, the social foundation or the social structures. It's going to outline what economics looks like. It's going to outline how we live. I mean, I was looking at what was it? China's they instituted, now I forgot what it's called, I'm drawing a blank. The Great Leap Forward. One of the things that Mao initiated, which I think was, you know, on point and correct, was that he had essentially several thousands of people living on a particular commune. People were sharing. It reflects many of the same systems. Well, I wouldn't say systems. It reflects many of the same social conditions that you will find in traditional African societies.
That brings me to a point that we have to be in service of our people. We have to sit in a seat of service for our people, whether it's dedicating our talents, our finances, our resources, our intellectual prowess. All of those things must be done in the service of African people. That's what's going to push us towards African sovereignty. That's that socialization that Baba Tamim is talking about. When we do that, we're going to be one step closer.
Cool. I appreciate, like, y'all answer. The car, were you about to jump in?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if I could speak.
Just jump in, go.
So yeah, just to add to what all my comrades are saying, y'all most definitely on point. We're gonna have to be able to be willing to do several things at once. Because a lot of people, they always talk about how, oh, I gotta focus on myself. Or, oh, I gotta focus on my family. You can focus on yourself for 100 years and then die. You can do the same thing for your family, because it's always gonna be problems. Somebody always gonna be passing away. Somebody gonna always be losing the job. Somebody gonna always be you know, going in and out of prison in this society. You know, we're always dealing with certain struggles. So it's like, you know, if we get wrapped up in just what we're dealing with individually, we ain't gonna never get there. And so we have to be willing to have this aspect of multitasking, and doing several things at once. And so, you know, the person came across the screen, they said studying, doing economics, doing this, doing that. And just like my comrades are saying, they're all hitting at several different points. But I wanted to add the aspect of knowing and understanding that it's kind of mandatory that we got to do all these different things. I know everybody's not going to do it all at once because we're growing at different paces, but we got to be able to know that we're not going to get to having our own governmental system protecting us and taking care of us without us being able to multitask. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're not just dealing with just police brutality. That's just one aspect of it. You know, these people are defining reality for us. They're telling us when to go to work. They're telling us when to go home. They're telling us when to celebrate a holiday. They're telling us when it's New Year's. They're telling us what day of the week it is. They're telling us when it's 4 o'clock, when it's 3 o'clock. You know, these people are defining everything for us. You know, that's also a part of racism. And so we got to be able to understand that this fight is multifaceted. Therefore, in order to be able to get to our own regulation system where we could do what we need to do for ourselves, we got to be really willing to do several things at once. And so that's why I add for now. But I'm gonna let you go ahead and say what you got to say, Bob.
No, appreciate that. That's great. No, I think everything what everyone is saying is on point. So let me just push in what I want us to actually narrow in on, because all of those elements are true and exact. But in terms of national construction at the level we're talking about, think about it like this. If you look at Kemet, because Kemet becomes our classical society, we don't find you know administrators or at the executive level that's not in family. You don't find none of them at the executive level that's not in family. So essentially, what is the role of, because see, everything that we said thus far, right? Everything we said is great, but we live in a society where as though we leave gaps, then perversion gonna come into the gap, right? Everything we said is correct because we know what's correct. But if we don't close the gaps up, somebody gonna slide in because the transsexual can do what? Can study, can grow food, can have economics. The transsexual can do all of that, right? So African sovereignty has to speak at that level also. Like some things are shut out. And the way these things are shut out in terms of African sovereignty, we got to break African sovereignty down. We got to do what you do in mathematics. We got to reduce it. To understand, we got to reduce it. And then look at it and look at African sovereignty at its most basic level, right? What is the most basic function or core principle of African sovereignty? It's the relation between the black man and the black woman. It's that. It's the black family. Like there is no, when we look at nations that was built, our nations, you see nations that our nation was built on the backs of families. Whether you're looking at Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Benue, the Zulu, Kemet, you know what I'm saying, the Kikuyu, you name it, right? It's built on family. It's built on family. And so when we talk about African sovereignty, because right now what's happening with the struggle with us in the United States of America, we thinking anybody can talk about it, anybody can do it, and no emphasis is on the black family. So that's the reason why all the sexual perversion is running rampant, right? Because we're not saying that it has to be the black man and the black woman coming together to build black family amongst other black families. And these black families are consolidating, organizing together to produce a black community amongst other black communities that's organizing and consolidating together to give birth to a black nation. That is the work. Because you can't run a nation if you can't manage a nation if you can't even manage a family. Come on now, we got to be realistic. A nation is multiple people, but you can't even manage something that's composed of 5 people. Now you're saying you equipped to manage a nation. And that's why we're in shambles, because people who haven't really demonstrated the capacity to truly organize and manage in terms of productivity are allowed to just do what? To talk out the side of their face about what they doing, what to do, what we need. That's the new thing now. Well, what we need to do, you know what I'm saying? You go on the social media, you can find somebody saying it. And in most cases, the person is always saying what we need to do isn't doing anything. If you can make the observation as to what we need to do, why you exclude yourself from actually doing what you say we need to do? You made the observation. You made that. We want to talk. See, we want to talk. And the true revolutionaries in this day and stage, we can't allow these people who aren't doing anything to just talk. You haven't earned the right to talk. You haven't earned the right to make an assessment of us as a people. You haven't earned the right to critique us because you're not doing anything. And we got to shut them down. You got to shut them down. You can't critique somebody who's been doing the work for 25 years and you haven't done the work at all. And you think you can come out the woodworks and make a critique? You haven't earned the right to critique. And we got to shut it down. And that's what we need to do. You always hear somebody saying what we need to do, what we need to do, what we need to do. But the people that's always saying what we need to do aren't doing anything. So for us, that's why I say when we make our assessments and our analysis, we got to make sure every crack is shut. And we have to make it so black. Back to Baba Karambon, right? We got to speak black. And we have to speak it so brilliantly and so proudfully when we make our analysis. We have to make sure we say black family. We have to make sure we saying it, because we can't speak in generalities anymore, because the generalities is leaving a gap for perversion to come in. So I guess my question to you guys, to add on to what I was saying, let's talk about the necessity, or is the black family a necessity? If so, why?
Can I add, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so most definitely, like, we're not going to get African sovereignty without having a black family, because we're not just talking about black people being positive. That's one of the things that I really dislike about, sometimes when people speak about what we got to do to be better, we just think that it's good enough just to be positive and just to be, enjoying one another. But black power does not directly translate as black positivity. Black power is positive, but it's not just about just saying, oh, we happy, we feeling good and doing this and that. Like, the black family is there to ensure our survival. Not just survival, but to ensure that when families come together, we keeping the resources in the family. Because when you marry outside the race and you pass away, who is that fat check going to? When you have children and you marry outside the race, all of a sudden the children grow up, they confused. Do I choose mommy's side? Do I choose daddy's side? Like, that's the confusion. But people don't look at it like that. They just think love is just love. It's my personal choice. This is my life. I'm going to live it. But we're not thinking about the repercussions. Marriage is a family institution. It's a community institution. Because whoever you marry, your family gonna have to help you deal with the troubles. You in a car situation, they gotta help give you finances. You need counseling, they gotta speak to you. So it's not just you and that other person. So we gotta be able to see the aspect of the communal importance of two people coming together. It's always been more deeper than just those two individuals. So that's what I would add so far to what you're saying about the black family.
I want to go back to the ideology, because family is what maintains the ideology. Case in point, there's some folks out there who are going to wash their clothes. Now, what type of detergent do you use to wash your clothes? Do you use Tide? Do you use Gain? Do you use the unscented, generic brand? All of that goes based on those type of family values that have been instilled and indoctrinated into a person from the earliest of ages. So yes, a black family, black man, black woman, black children is important because they instill those values, and those values is a part of that ideology. As I was growing up, my family will always say, you date somebody that looks like you, don't date a person that looks like the refrigerator, or like this side of your hand, you don't date that. Those are the kind of lessons that was learned. So by the time I went out into the dating scene, or the dating scene found me,
he found it chocolate as he can find it, huh?
We found a little chocolate going on. So I'm gonna leave it there.
I want to add something.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Y'all on fire.
No, I wanted to mention that, I look at the as moving towards African South. I think the black family, the black man, the black woman have to be the vanguard in that movement. In the process of seeking the realization of African sovereignty, there's going to be a lot of contention going on. It's going to be a lot of clashing, you know what I'm saying? Because you're going to have to shake up the foundation which you stand on at the time, because it's not the foundation that which is your home, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you bringing something new into an old war zone. It don't fit. So therefore, the moment that you introduce that element into that war zone, it's automatically going to be some contention there. And that's how, you move against the grain. That's how you change the circumstances. So the black family got to be the vanguard. They got to be on the forefront. The black family got to take the lead on this. Like Barbara just said earlier about when you make analysis of the situation, if you can diagnose the situation, then you can address the situation. But the only way that you get to that particular point is that you study, though. Because studying, I had a conversation the other day about our study, about struggle, and about studying. Because a lot of times, study is just not studying books to me. Studying is actually getting out there and doing the work as well. Because a lot of knowledge grows and begin to develop as you actually engage in the process of figuring things out. as you begin to see these things work in terms of African sovereignty. So that's why I'm saying that the Black family have to be the vanguard. They got to be the leading charge in this particular movement for African sovereignty. And they got to be fearless in their pursuit of it. They got to be fearless in their pursuit of it. And they got to be personal on every level. And they got to begin to develop children with the same mentality and way of being in it. Because sovereignty is a mentality, but it's also a lifestyle. It's a way of being. It's something that you become, and it's something that you seek to manifest completely in the way that you exist. So it's not just something that, you know, a pastime. Like you hear some people say, I'm on man time today. Ain't no such thing, I'm on man time today. Either you're a man or you're not. So when you're on African sovereignty time, that means that you're on African sovereignty time completely, you know, so it consumes everything that you are and that you're doing. So I think that's what we have to be able to push and realize as well, as far as African, you know, the Black family being the vanguard.
Hotep, great job. Go on, Mama Gina.
So I want to speak to the women in that regard when we talk about being the vanguard. So women, Black women, African women, you have to understand that it is also your duty to protect and nurture your husband, your children, your partner. It's not enough to say that I'm raising my children. I'm here to do my part, the feminine aspects. You have to understand that you also have to be vigilant. You also have to protect. It's not just up to the man to protect you and the children. You also have to protect that husband. You have to protect him by nurturing him, affirming him, breathing life into your children, speaking positivity in their lives, being a sense of I like to tell women that we not only bring the culture in the home, but we help to maintain the culture. We're the bedrock of it. So the women must know that is a way of protecting. That is a way of nurturing. Our men go out here in this world, in this society. Our children go out here in this society, and they have to be protected. And protection is not just a physical blow or hit. Protection is nurturing, affirming, loving, being attentive, being vigilant to their emotional state, their spirit state, being conscientious of yourself. That's how we stand on the front lines. So I wanted to add that and just speak to the women.
No, stay right there. I want to pick with you for a little bit now.
Let's get in.
I want to pick with you for a little bit because one could easily argue that you just presented. I'm not saying you did, but like I say, our analysis has to be the laser. So one can argue that you saying Black women, you got to protect your man, do this for your man, this for your man. Did Mama Gina just put forth a patriarchal perspective? Is that what I heard Mama Gina doing? I don't know. So you tell me.
So absolutely not. We never can neglect or mistreat our men. We also expect that in return. That's my reciprocity. What I do and the seeds that I sow, it will come back to me. I treat my children with kindness and joy, and it will come back to me, whether it's directly to me, whether it's within the community, within the elders. So we stand on the principles of my aunt, and my aunt says that reciprocity is within all relationships. Does that wrap that point up? So just as I'm protecting my man, he's protecting me.
Okay. Okay. Mama Tiambe, what do you say? What do you say? What are your thoughts?
With it, and it's funny that you called that out because as she was speaking, that was one of the things that I felt kind of call out to me was the concept of that balance, right? When we're talking about the family, we're talking about keeping an entity in balance. And when we're able to keep that family in balance, then we're able to keep our community in balance. So what we see a lot of times in society doesn't necessarily reflect how the African family should be, because you have to have that black man and that black woman. All right. That black man, my words are very intentional, black man and black woman. That is what should be making a family. That is what should be the foundation of a family, because that black man and that black woman make that black child, like you said earlier. And so if we're going to have this powerful black family, we have to understand that the creator did not make any mistakes in the way that we were placed upon this earth, because we have to have that perfect balance. The black man and black woman, they balance each other in a way that is very necessary, right? And it's the same way with myself and my husband. I nurture, he nurtures. I protect, he protects. So neither of us come to a point where we are feeling like we're missing out on anything, because there's that ebb and flow. There's a consistent ebb and flow, because that's the way that should be balanced. And in us doing that, our Watoto are able to see what that looks like when the black man and the black woman have a balanced relationship. And when they see that, they are inspired to go out and seek that. Right? They're not seeing dysfunction and destruction within their home. In our home and wherever we go, we create a sanctuary around us that allows our children to see that the black man and the black woman are safety, right? The black man and the black woman are sacred. And so that is what should be the image that we're putting forth to our children. Because if we're saying that the family is the bedrock, we're saying that we need to be creating a cycle. We got to do more of that, right? We have to inspire our Watoto to want to do more of that. Just like Baba Tamim said, he went out there and he found him a chocolate thing, right? And that's what my children need to know. You got to go out there and get black, right? Because we're keeping black for generations after generations after generations. That's the goal if we're going to have sovereignty.
Excellent. I like it. I like it. Come on, Baba, to go get in.
I wanted to say, because when you asked that question, it made me think about, because I think they never really hear black men say, "Oh yeah, I'm in the kitchen," or "I wash clothes,"
Yeah.
or "I clean the house."
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Or "I massage my wife's feet," and
That's
stuff
right.
like that. Those are things that we do. As a Fatu, that's what I do. You know,
Right.
there's no shame in that. There's power in that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to do those things that are fitting for the development and the wholesome of your family.
There we go.
Because ultimately you're trying to accomplish something that's bigger than your family, but it includes your family. So that's
Yeah.
when you think about African sovereignty, you think about that vision and what we're trying to accomplish. So I think they don't hear it enough from us. You know, we vanguards, yeah, we on the front line. You know, we do what we do at the same time, but we have a different side of us inside in a household. You know what I mean? And nurturing our women, nurturing our children, and being what they need for us to be at that time. You know what I'm saying? So we can do the work when we need to be something else. So, you know, I think that's that point had to be mentioned. You know.
Excellent point.
That's an excellent point. And when we talk about them Fatius, I have to brag on the Fatu men, because ladies out there, you know, these Fatu men are built differently. You know, my husband, he take care of the babies, he changed diapers, he wash clothes, he cook. I love all of that. It's a balance. It really is. And we need to hear, like Baba Segu was saying, we do need to hear that narrative shift, because I talk about it in my book. Baba talk about it in his book, that when it comes to upholding the household, it's all about who is best skilled to do the job. It's not about these gender roles that this oppressive society like to put on men and women. You know, if I have the skills to clean gutters, I'm gonna go out there and clean gutters, or mow the lawn, I'm gonna go out there and mow the lawn. It does not mean that, oh, I can never take out the trash because I'm the woman. So as a Fatu, we learned that, hey, it's different. We different. We built different. and this is we're doing what's in the best interest of the group. And in this instance, it's the family, the household. Each individual household has a set of expectations, and it's based on skills, knowledge, all of that. So I love how you elevated that, because I do appreciate my husband. He definitely holds it down. I saw him today walking through the airport with both the children, 2 bags on his back. And I had my bags too, and I had another child, walking next to me. But we was making it happen. We were supporting each other. So that's what it's all about. That's the Black family right there in real time. Y'all in on that.
Oh, let me, because I was gonna say we was doing all that in the airport, and then when we got our bag, we ended up finding a young man. He was about 19 years old, college, first time traveling alone. He didn't get his bag. He was upset. He was on the phone with his mom. He's trying to figure out, why did this happen to him? His ride is a couple hours away. So even with all of that going on amongst us and our family, we still stayed at that airport, helped him fill out the forms. We exchanged phone numbers. We was, just being in contact with him, making sure he was good, making sure he submitted everything, and making sure that, if he needed anything, let's just say 24 hours, 72 hours from now, when his bag finally did come, that we would see if we had anything that we could do just to help him out. Yeah. So that's just an aspect of how one family can influence and embrace another family. It's based on the ideology, and our ideology, survival of the group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great point. Come on, Dakar.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to add as well was the aspect of culture, because children are introduced to their culture from their family. The family gets it from the community and from the family that they came from, but a child is introduced to the culture from their parents, from their parents living it, from their parents speaking it, and from their parents putting the children in the community. And so when we talk about the importance of culture, we have to understand the Black man and the Black woman, because in order for the child to get what they need, you can't dilute the water. You can't say, let's put a little bit of alcohol in a bottle so the baby can go to sleep. No, give that baby what it needs. It needs straight breast milk. It needs straight nutrients. So it's the same thing when we talk about the Black man and the Black woman, because we're not going to get no revolution without culture. And that's why Baba Milcar Cabral talk about return to the source, because what's weakening us is the fact that we're not practicing our culture. When we not practicing our culture, we're taking on somebody else's culture, whether we know it or not. And that's what white people know. They know, if I can get you to behave like me, you can do my work. Therefore, I don't have to go in your community and shoot y'all. Y'all gonna do it. You're gonna do it for me, because my battery is in your back. And so at the end of the day, this culture becomes extremely important so that we can get to our goal of having our empire. Like Baba was breaking down earlier, individuals become families, families become communities, communities come together to become nations, and nations come together to become empires. And so when we talk about African sovereignty, we got to understand we're talking about different Black nations within Africa coming together to control the continent and protecting our people and serving our people wherever we're at in the world. But that's starting with the Black family. To get all the way there, we got to be able to know the importance of culture. And so at the end of the day, that becomes extremely important, because we got to know that we waging a war, and your culture is your first weapon. You can't fight if you don't know who you are. You can't fight if you don't know where you come from. You can't fight if you don't know who your enemy is. We have to understand that culture is not just going to events. It's not just playing music, not just putting on a dashiki. It's not just tasting certain foods, doing arts and crafts. That's all the stuff the white people are trying to make us think, because that helps us to stay fragmented. But culture is basically talking about the way that we think, speak, and behave. And all those other things come from that root. And so at the end of the day, the black family creates culture, because culture comes from people. And so at the end of the day, we're not going to get to African sovereignty. We're not going to have our Black empire if we don't have Black families introducing Black children to Black culture, so that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing when we're walking in the world.
Great point. So, based on what I've heard all of you elaborate on so beautifully, one could argue, and I've heard this myself. The black man and the black woman need to be together is being overrated. One can't help who he or she fall in love with. I think it's overrated that we keep talking about the black man and the black woman got to be together in the black family. I can't help who I fall in love with. It's just overrated. What do you say to that?
I think it's an excuse, just to be straight up. I think it's an excuse, and that's why I was speaking about culture, because culture suggests things for you subliminally. Like we think that Doritos, Funyuns, watching shows like Family Guy, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, or even saying Happy New Year on January 1st. We think these things are accidents. We think that it's an accident to say I'm a Capricorn, I'm Aquarius. All these things are cultural suggestions. So when you get somebody saying I can't help who I choose, no, you can. It's just that somebody has been pulling the strings and you don't even realize it. You just think that, you're saying on accident that yeah, we all just human, it don't really matter. That's something that's really been conditioned in the back of our mind. We say that now because we don't know who we are and we don't know who they are. But it's not, to me, that becomes an excuse. And not just an excuse, because I know people, they still have to learn properly. So I'm gonna also say that people say it out of ignorance, and out of lack of knowledge of knowing who they are.
Good point.
I wanted to mention something in regards to that, because I hadn't heard that before. And a lot of people or individuals that say that, they always have something negative to say about Black people. They never really have anything good to say about them. So when they say, I can't help who I love, you can always help who you love. And stuff like that. That stuff don't fall out the sky, like the brother Baba Dakari just said. Those things are conditioned into you. And the culture that you normally embrace, it influences your likes, your dislikes. It influences your perception of things, because if you are saturated in your own culture, then your interest is going to be focused in your culture. And a lot of times the people that have their interests outside of their culture, because they are focused and they're centered in someone else's culture. They have done absolutely nothing for us. And it's crazy, because your identity, how you see yourself, it's not about color, it's not about this, it's not about, it just, like he said, about being human. You don't even want to announce that you're a Black man or a Black woman. And that's a problem. You should be able to say who you are without having any type of fear, reservations, or hesitation about it. You should be able to embrace who you are wholly, with respect, with dignity, and with courage. And a lot of times we can't do that when we are not centered and grounded in our culture. The first thing they say who you are, the first thing you say, oh, my name is John, or my name is Linda. But you never speak about, who you are as an African man or African woman. What's your identity in terms of spirit? What's your identity in terms of culture? Not these names, because most of our names is birthed out of this particular European culture that we grew up in. We don't even want to embrace an African name. That speaks to your consciousness, whether we realize it or not. The type of names and what we choose to define ourselves, because mostly all African names comes with, I'm going to say, directives. I'm going to say social and spiritual and social directives, because these names embark you on a particular path that begins to define who you are becoming. Like my name is Shegu. It's Nigerian, but it's who won my war. So my name speaks to something. He won my war. We right now in a war of African people against an alien culture system. So the name defines you. It's supposed to guide you, and it speaks to your level of consciousness and how you should move. Hotel.
Good point. So let me ask this question: is it fair to say that love or black love rather, is political? Is love political?
Yes.
Everything is political.
Everything. Y'all hear me say
You
this?
was on mute.
Oh,
Hold on, you was on mute. Go ahead.
how we see politics, and when we talk about what's political, is doing what's in the best interest of the group, doing what's in the best interest of African people. So when you choosing a mate, you are thinking not only for yourself, but for your future children, for the community, for your family, for your elders. And I'm gonna tell y'all, black man, black woman, being in a complementarity relationship is vital to our survival. We will not survive as a race without this. So sometimes that's the political agenda, our survival, right? We talking about African sovereignty tonight. In order for us to survive, we must understand that we must be in a complementary relationship with a black man and woman. You naturally attracted to a black man and woman, and anybody that tell you differently has introduced you to a foreign culture, has introduced you and inundated you with a culture that does not serve your highest self, your true authentic self. So let's be very clear. Our vitality, our survival is based on the black man and black woman coming together.
Good point. Anyone want to add to that?
I was thinking about something. Maybe you can add something to this, Baba. I was thinking about all these what they consider to be great presidents. You know, I'm thinking about like where you talking about these individuals. You know, the presidents of this country, right? It goes all the way back to Washington, Lincoln. When you come up to Bush's, Clinton's, have any of them ever married outside of their race? Because most of what they have inherited, they passed on down to their children or their children's children. Look at the Bushes. Every Bush had a white woman. They embraced their own culture. They never had a problem in doing that. It naturally unfolded that way in order for them to get what they needed to get to ensure themselves. I mean, unless I missed something. Hotep.
No, great point. Great point. And I would add to that. I asked the question, is love political? Because I wanted, our viewers to understand it that way. Because I want our viewers I want us in our dialogue to add to the conversation the grand narrative of Black people, which is a conversation. So I want our dialogue from this political and social point of view to add to that. And I believe part of adding to that is to do what one of the things that urban philosophy is designed to do is to reframe the narrative. Like the narrative has to be reframed, and reframing the narrative, we have to tell that narrative from the position of a Black person, right? And in doing that, we have to look at reality, not from how society say we must view reality. We must look at reality from our center. So for us, we start out as African people, but we cannot blind ourselves to the nature of the conditions that we are confronted with. So we have to always factor those conditions in, whatever the analysis is that we are making. So when I say is love political, which it is, it's political through and through. And not only is love political, back to your point, Baba Tamim, love is also ideological. It's also ideological because ideology is political. As culture. Culture is equally political. And culture is also what? Ideological. Right? So they run hand in hand. And so when we set out as a man or a woman to build the family, we set out to build the family. We set out with the mindset that I want to build the family to add power and strength to a Black community.
I didn't understand that.
To add to the building of a nation. You hear that phone go off, start talking, man?
Oh, yeah, they up in the live now too.
What that was about.
They tuned in.
You know, we have to set out that way. So to love is to understand that I am going to enter into a complementary relationship with a black woman so that she and I together can build some power that we can lend to our community, to lend to the nation. Right? That's a political move, because we can only love one another in the interest of us as a people. We can only love one another in the interest of us as a people. Why? Because we are, in fact, behind enemy lines. We're being pressed upon, and therefore we must build our way out of this. We build our way out of this by looking at our situations as accurately as possible, right? And we must do that from reframing the narrative. We can't look at us from the narrative that have already been crafted for us, right? See, white society through white thought have already crafted a narrative, and they have already took ownership of that narrative. And that's the narrative that they are pushing. They're pushing the narrative of what? Of the single black family, you know what I'm saying? Or the single black mother. They're pushing the narrative of what? 1 in every 3 black men is in some form of adjustment, whether incarcerated, on parole, or on probation. That's their narrative. Like, they're pushing that, right? Because if I can consistently push negative aspects about black people, you know what I'm saying? What does it do, right? It makes black problematic. It pathologizes black. You know what I'm saying? There's always in comparison. You know what I'm saying? 1 in 3 black women black woman is more likely to contract breast cancer than white women. There's always these comparisons where white is always elevated and black is always down. Look at the comparisons. They're always making some type of comparison that elevates white and reduces black. They have taken ownership of the narrative. Urban philosophy teaches us that we have to reframe the narrative. And in reframing the narrative, we have to recenter black thought. When you reframe the narrative, you got to do that, right? You got to tell the black story from the black perspective. Our story have to emerge within the narrative as being supreme. The supreme dynamic, the supreme theme within the story is the black people, it's the black man, the black woman, and child, the black family, and ultimately the black nation. This is the work that we have to do. We have to be about that business, and we have to be in a constant state of self-analysis. A constant state of self-analysis. We can never tell ourselves that we have arrived at some type of elevated state of awareness. We must forever be in a constant state of self-analysis to ensure that we are consistently and constantly doing what? Cleansing ourselves of white thought. That's going to be going on for a very long time. But while we are cleansing, this is my question to you. Simultaneously, while we are cleansing of white thought, what must we be doing?
Putting in African culture.
Yeah, that's right.
And can I mention one thing?
Making it intergenerational. Yeah.
Because within PLM, like our ideology is scientific Pan-Africanism. And this is very key to what Baba is saying, because a lot of people can miss it, because we have this understanding of Pan-African, meaning the unifying of black people all over the world, regardless of what their allegiance is given to, whether they're Christian, Muslim, this or that. And that's true to a certain extent. We're not saying that we're going to leave our people behind because they don't see everything the way that we see it. However, when we speak about scientific Pan-Africanism, we're talking about African culture becomes the standard. It becomes the face. And so when we talk about having African sovereignty in our society, the public schools is going to be African-centered schools. You know, when we talk about having people, you know, being able to get funding for certain things, the primary funding is going to go towards African-centered measures. All other things are going to become private institutions where, you know, they have to go and raise their money. We're not saying we're going to ice you out, but at the end of the day, the emphasis is black. The emphasis is African. And we have to be able to move our people towards this place of being comfortable with saying that, you know, I'm putting African spirit systems first. You know, what does that look like? I'm putting African-centered education first. What does that look like? I'm putting African-centered social systems first, because we always keep saying stuff like socialism. Like, we need to let that go. We say that because we're not really studying African culture. If we study African culture, we know we don't need to say socialism. We know we don't need to say communism and things like that. You know, white people are not the people that own social understanding, so we don't gotta live inside their box. Our ancestors, we had a communal way of living, flat out. That's it. But it's like we're not gonna get this if we're not really on our stuff the way that we should be. And so this is why, as PLM, you know, we gotta be urban philosophers. We're constantly studying, we're constantly looking at our studies, looking at our history and our culture, because we think that we can come to the end of a road and be like, you know, I know it all. Nah, there's always more doors inside the African house. And so I'll leave it at that.
Good point, good point. All right, so we are clearly at 10 p.m., but I put this up here because I don't want us to get up out here without somebody answering this question. I don't know who's going to tackle that question, but which one of you brilliant Black African men or women who want to give that a shot right there before we get up out of here? Who want to tackle that?
I'll tackle it. If somebody else want to jump in, but I do want to recommend this book because the latter part of this question, it talks about raising our children and being parents, and there's no instructions. We got instruction manuals. This book was written by Dr. Layla Africa, and it's controlling, understanding, and raising Black children, infants to teenagers. It's almost like an encyclopedia. It's good. We don't need an instruction manual per se. We don't need necessarily a book, but when we study and internalize it, the way we live and how we are will be enough for our children. You know, when I hear people say what you're saying, that we don't have instructions, we have instructions out there. It goes back to what Baba Segu was saying earlier. We got to study. And a simple way to put even what Brother Dakari was saying a few minutes ago, and I said this on the last live, we have to center Black thought and behavior while decentering white thought and behavior. When we do this, we are able to implement things where we won't even have to hear people say the things that you're saying they're saying, because we'll be living it. We'll be living our truth and living our way. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I want to say something real fast. Unless Baba want to do it.
No,
because when I seen the question, I mean, when I seen that statement, I was thinking about, because a lot of times that argument, I mean, that statement is not Black centered. It was never something that was said by us. I think I'm trying to remember where I first, like, you know, where it maybe came from, but a lot of times we'll say, "Oh man, I got this from my grandmother. I got this from my aunt, my great aunt, or my great grandmother taught me this, or my great grandfather taught me this about that, and how to do this with the children, how to make this little herb up to feed my child while she's sick or something like that. Wrap her in onions and put her in the sheets or something like that." So we know that there's certain things that have been passed down to us. A lot of times we don't choose to tap into those sources, and because we choose not to be good parents, to be student parents, to be mindful parents, and to understand that parenting means also growing and constantly developing yourself to be a good parent. You know what I'm saying? So we lost that desire, that thought, that endeavor, that duty that we try to justify by saying, you know, ain't no instructions. There's always instructions. Ain't nothing in life that was ever created without instructions. Everything.
Hotep. So yes, so we are now 10:04, 4 minutes past our time. So we're going to close it out. Give a big shout out to Dr. Dennis Assar Winkler for signing in from here in Baltimore City, and everyone else that joins us on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. We appreciate you for tuning in and just rocking with us as we do this thing. But join us here again in 2 weeks as we return with another episode of the Urban Black, PLM Black Forum here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where information is always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. And with that, we say, be before Hodier and race first.
Be before Hodier, race first.
Race first.